Hi guys, how have you been? As usual, I know you wait for Wednesdays. Welcome to your weekly dose of fun, laughter, banter, and a whole lot of realness. But this week's episode is most likely going to be a lot of realness more than fun and banter and laughter. And that is because we are very saddened by what is currently happening in the country right now. We are at a time where we are all looking back above our shoulders because we are scared with the many cases that we've been hearing about femicide. And so today we just want to talk about the sanctity of life and to deeply come out strongly as young people who are especially at church to condemn such situations and such behaviors. So welcome to the Vineyard. Hi guys, say hi.
Hello. It feels like a very serious, actually it's a very serious, heavy episode, but
It is.
It's good to be back on set as usual. And I'm looking forward to discussing this very real, very current issues happening in our land of Kenya.
Looking forward. I'm a bit scared actually of talking about this. There's a fine line of speaking truth and then coming off as abrasive
Or condemnatory.
You know?
Yeah.
So there's so much to go into this. Kings, this is majorly going to be something about femicide so much. But do you think it's going to be very relevant for you to speak on this episode?
I think it is because we don't live alone. We don't live in an island. We live in a society that we have both male and female. And I think when we have one voice speaking the same thing, it makes sense as opposed to only one party being aggrieved and they're the ones who are talking about it while we're just seated there being like, oh well, it's not my issue to deal with.
Not my circus, not my monkey. I think we've got to all be concerned. This is something that should really strike a nerve at every one of us because we wait for things to get closer home before we can take them with the gravity that we should take them.
Yeah.
But this time, I think we should come out strongly and desist from waiting until it gets closer home because this is somebody. We are constantly talking about this is somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, somebody. We just stop it at this is somebody.
Someone.
And life in and of itself is sacrosanct. It's sacred. Life, whatever form, even if you don't agree with anybody and what they are doing, you do not have the justification to take somebody's life. What do you guys think?
I think even just from where you've left it off, I have been reminded right now of the verse. There's a verse I really like in Micah chapter 6, verse 8. I think it's chapter 6. 6 or 5, but I think it's chapter 6, verse 8 that says, "And what does the Lord your God require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." To act justly. What is every single human being has the right to life. And I like what you say that you don't have to agree with what somebody is doing most of the times, and that's the narrative that we're really seeing trying to be shifted, is we shift to victim blaming because we feel like, and why was she there, and why was she wearing what she was wearing, for example, especially in the recent cases that we've been seeing, and this whole narrative of Airbnbs, you can't even
now you can't even say
you can't even go for vacation.
You can't go for a staycation because wasichana wanapenda kuitafuta. I think especially as the church we are speaking as young people because it has really affected Gen Zs, because when you see the age of some of the ladies who have been
gruesomely mauled to death,
it's hard to speak to say the words in full. You see, it's a 20-year-old girl, 20, somebody who has
just
not
starting out.
You've not even seen the better days. You keep being told better days are yet to come. You don't even get to see those better days yet. So I think I'm glad we are getting to have this conversation and just openly, loudly, vehemently condemn these actions. Of course, it has cut across not just women. We've been seeing in the media also, especially I think once that first case hit, it's like every day you're seeing like almost 2 to 3 new cases.
A case coming up.
So it's disheartening. It's absurd. There's no enough English words to describe the situation that's happening. And we pray, and as we continue to speak this and have these conversations, that it will empower people and cause us to have a turn and just not see this
and
situations.
not see this anymore.
Yeah.
Kings, I think I'd specifically just want to ask you this question, because it would seem so much as though most of the cases we're seeing right now are targeted towards women. And we've not just seen them from the case of having ladies go to B&Bs. We're even hearing of fathers just waking up one morning and deciding to end the lives of their children. Men who are beating their wives to death, or just coming and stabbing them. Or it could even be that a boyfriend is not happy with their ex, and then they just decided to come and end their life. What would you think you would speak into such a situation? What do you think would probably be the biggest cause of us having to see such cases?
I think hey, I think at times as men we entertain a lot of things in the name of joke. Someone will say something, but it holds so much sensitivity. But because we are very at times individualistic, we lack the know-how to tell someone that's not it. Because someone will joke about, unajua mupiganga bibi yangu, and we cheer him on, unapiga bibi yako, then we start now getting tips of how to beat our wives. I think as men, we need now to start having the conversations and making them count and making them matter, because we can no longer sit down and be like, I heard you catcall someone and catcall them in such a manner, and just sit there and look at you with disgust. But you see, it doesn't have any effect to it. So the conversations we have need to be intentional. You need to set an example, even us, because being silent means you're being partisan to whatever is happening. You see, it's like you're telling them, go on. But
it's like you're being acquiescent. Whether it happens or not, anyway, I don't have an opinion to say.
But also, too, we need to understand how sacred life is. Because I think at times we are of the mindset, if it doesn't bother me, why should I even do it? And you're like, I've played my part. Me, I don't do those things. You know how you silence yourselves. Me, sifanyangi hizo vitu. So why should it bother me? But and especially as Christians, life is sacred. There's something about, and I like what Son said about Micah. There's you need to speak up for justice, because one day God will ask you. You sat somewhere and people are talking about this, but you decided to keep quiet and say, I'm a guy. Me, in fact, nothing has ever happened like that with my friends.
Or me, I don't do that.
And you see, that can't be an argument anymore for us as guys to say, but me sifanyangi hizo vitu, I'm not those people. But you see, it doesn't matter if you're part or not, but if you don't speak up and take action, you're not outside, you're not making any difference.
In fact, you're making it worse.
You've reminded me of one of our local sayings that says, there's no thief and the one who's peeping. Both of them serving the same purpose, equally to blame. It's kind of like that, that speak against it. As long as you're in a position to speak against it, as long as you're in a position to act against it, then act according to the capacity that has been given to you.
And also, one last thing, don't make someone feel as if they are, whatever they're complaining about is not worth it. Because at times, for example, let's say someone will grope a lady, madam, at times they belittle it. Madam, huyu hata ni mzuri. You see, they start giving you other scenarios of huyu hata ni mzuri. Wengine wengine hata wameuawa kwa magari. And you see, because you're trying to belittle you're trying to victimize them, kuonesha what you've went through as compared to what is happening.
You should even be grateful I did this much.
So I think also not I tell guys, if a guy was to do that to you, you will
you would now understand how uncomfortable it is.
There's a friend who told me, if a guy gropes you, let me tell you, there's nothing to discuss. You'll be discussing. You'll beat
instant.
We do not advocate for violence, just in case you're watching and thinking that is one of the resolutions we're giving.
But it's just to bring the point home, to show people, if it was reversed, we wouldn't even entertain the thought to start off with. That someone has groped me.
And you see, it's interesting, Kengori, that you'd even bring the option of reversing. I think what irks me the most, and I think as we were preparing to do this episode, I was asking the Lord to give me so much wisdom and strength to contain myself, because I can get very passionate, overly passionate about this topic, is the fact that we would have to, first of all, reverse so that we can get the gravity of how disgusting something is. Can't it just be wrong to do that without, and just acknowledge that this person is important and this person doesn't like it, without you having to empathize with it.
To create a parallel.
To compare that. And I think I was strangely irked by that thought, because that's what we usually do when we talk about, well, she's someone's, instead of that, this is somebody, But we're not trying to demonize anybody here, but we're just trying to say that as a society, we need to do better. We definitely need to do better. And so this is the point of the episode that I come to just ask you guys to reflect a bit on, maybe, because clearly at some point we've got a responsibility towards our own safety and to our neighbor's safety at some point. But it's important to know that there's one of our sayings that we say here in Kenya. I think it's a methali that says, aliye kando haangukiwi na mti. Not to say that people have put themselves in the situation, but sometimes prevention is better than cure. Are there some things that we can do to mitigate some of these things? Son, especially from the ladies' point. Are there some things we can do to just ensure our safety?
Yes. I think especially what we've been seeing a lot is crimes of passion. As much as I think you remember when we had the dinner last year, we were asked a very strong question. Is free will really free? All this to say, especially in times that we are living right now, fine, you have the free will and the decision and the autonomy to decide to wear whatever you want to wear, to go wherever you want to go. What you have absolutely no control over is the consequences of what you have chosen to do. That's why we ask, is free will really free? And so to say, as far as we can control it, of course, you can't. A murderer is a murderer. And there are people out here walking who are just psychopaths. And our responsibility, especially I speak from the female perspective, the best we can do, because we can't control. I may want to wear whatever I want to wear. Who doesn't want free will?
We all do.
Everybody does. But to the extent to which you can control it, which is by the choices that you make for yourself, I would say, one, like we were having the conversation on chaperones. You remember the conversation we were having? What you wear. I know this is controversial.
It is. So many people will be asked by that
sensitive
statement.
One. The places that you choose to go. I know there are people who are still really battling with certain addictions, or even maybe it's just a choice of it's just a choice of lifestyle. But if you have chosen that is your way of life and you're going out and whatever, not indulging to the point where you have lost control of your senses, and you give this evil people a chance to take advantage of you, to lure you into a place where now all we are left with is a court case or us or social media hashtags. As much as we are creating awareness on this topic, these are lives that we have lost. These are futures that have gone down the drain. So for as far and as much as we can, of course, that is never to put the blame on the victim, ever. But outside here, there are people who are walking who are just mad. We can't justify it any other way. And so to the point that we can control, the conversation we're having on chaperones is, if you are going on a date with somebody that you don't know, you've never met, maybe you've met online through DMs, Instagram or whatever, or what is this other one for swiping left and right?
Tinder.
Tinder and her sisters and brothers. And the rest, because I know there are many versions of Tinder these days. Instead of just alerting somebody and saying, because we don't know where you're going, if to the extent that you can, go with somebody so that they're in the environment at least, because you're meeting with somebody you don't know. Even if the conversation was going well, because this crimes of passion, most of these ladies trusted the people they were meeting and they were going out with, and it just ended sourly. So it's just mitigating and putting as many precautions as possible to ensure your safety, because the only thing you can control is like what you really have control over. You where you go, your dressing, etc., how you control your environment. The rest we don't have control.
We do not have control over. And I think as just to cap at what you're saying is that you only know yourself and not any other person.
Yeah.
So really, if you can be able to protect yourself, do so as best as you can. Kings, from a guy's perspective, what do you think are some of the things that maybe guys can start doing differently so that they can contribute to just ensuring that society in general is a safer place for women and girls?
I think we can look back in history and see, especially African culture, and if you see how our great-grandmothers used to dress, but you see the level of discipline, the level of decency that was in that society as compared to now are so different. You see, it was so hard to hear someone being raped, someone being murdered, but now it's very rampant. So if you can look back, and the beauty of the society that was back, they had one voice. If this was the standard, if they said there's no opportunity for you to rape a girl, you either marry her or you go your way. It's either or. And I think we need to come back to such a society whereby we can speak with one voice and agree. This is the standard we are setting as society. And as men, we are saying, if you go on a date and someone says no, go home. My friend, go home.
Take your L's and move.
Go home. Or if you're dropping someone off, kindly just drop them off. See, you offered it from the kindness of your heart. You see, you told her you're going the same direction. Stop at these other stories. Situfika hapo kwangu. Sasa, where has that come from? And I think setting that standard and also having community around you that do not spur you towards the opposite direction, but are telling you life is sacred, regardless of whether it's a woman or a man. And I tell people, because you are the stronger sex, on Judgment Day, ours will be a bit harsher. You'll be told, we give you ladies to protect them. What do you do with those ladies, in all honesty?
You killed them.
The very ladies we gave you, you just
So I think as a society, if we can able to rally men and speak with one voice and say, as men, this is our stand. Our role as men is to protect and preserve. If you don't do that, these are the consequences that come with it. You know? And you see, if we start shunning away such type of crimes, it will become easier to sustain, because kitambo, someone who has done such a thing, you won't be accepted back to that community.
That's true.
What is this? You're bringing shame to us. But now it's a trophy. That's the sad reality. It becomes a trophy to us when someone does such a thing. Like, and you got away with it. Wow. Instead of
this is wrong.
So going back to the simplest of principles of life is sacred, regardless of who it is. And because you are the stronger party in this, in fact, your responsibility is even much more.
To whom much is given, much more is expected.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lovely note to just end this episode.
Yes.
Might have taken a bit longer, but I think it's important issues that we must speak against, because as Gen Zs, we are the victims and we are the assailants. Our responsibility is to protect ourselves to the farthest extent that we can. And for the neighbor, do not do unto others that which you'd never want to be done unto you. That's what the word of God says, because it says that we should love our neighbors as we love ourselves. And if we love ourselves, then we don't want to finish ourselves. We would not want to do the same to our neighbors. This has been this week's episode of The Vineyard. Hopefully the one for next week will have a different tone. But thank you so much for listening in. And if you've just got any more advice you can give on some of the things you're probably trying to do in your own individual capacity to just ensure society is safer, please share on our socials. We'd like to hear from you. Till next week. Bye-bye.
Peace. Bye.